Good day, everyone. Good day, sir, and good day, classmates. I am Alice Claire Lapitaje, and today I will be presenting and explaining what is a lesson plan, how to create it, and together with a detailed lesson plan for grade 8 science. So, before discussing the lesson plan itself, let us first understand what is a lesson plan and why is it very important in teaching. So, as lesson plan is a teacher's organized guide for conducting a class. So it outlines the objectives, learning activities, materials, assessments, and procedure that will be used during the lesson. So lesson planning is very important for teachers because it helps teachers to first organize their instruction. Next is ensure that learning objectives is achieved. And the next, to manage, of course, the time effectively. And then lesson plan provides a meaningful experience for students since it is a plan that will be conducted in the actual class. So, a well-prepared lesson plan helps the teacher anticipates the students' needs and ensure that the lesson flows into a logical and structured, structured manner. So, for this presentation, I will explain the different parts of a dated lesson plan using a 7E instructional model, which commonly used in the science teaching to promote an active learning and conceptual understanding. So 7E includes first elicit, and then engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and then extend and evaluate. So the topic of this lesson is elements and compounds, which are part of the grade 8 science curriculum. So now let's proceed to the lesson information. So the lesson information. So in this part of the lesson plan, it states the topic, the grade level, the time allotment, and the teacher who prepares it. So for this lesson plan, the topic is elements and compounds. The grade level is the grade 8, and then time allotment is 45 minutes. And the teacher is myself. So this section is very important because it provides the overview of the lesson and it helps the teacher identify who is the lesson is for and how it should be conducted. Now, let's proceed to the content and learning competency. In this lesson plan, we have a content and learning competencies. So, in the context of this section of the lesson plan, it states that elements and compounds are defined by their distinct properties, in which elements combine to form compounds. So, this means that the lesson focuses on helping the students understand how matter can exist as pure substance and how these substances are classified. So, the learning competencies states that students should be able to describe the properties of pure substance, such as, of course, elements and compounds. Their This competency actually guides the teacher in ensuring that lesson plan is aligned with the curriculum standard. That is why content and learning competency is embedded in the lesson plan. Next, we have objectives. So, objectives section in the lesson plan. So it states that a specific lesson's outcome students should achieve at the end of the lesson. So according to the lesson plan, the objectives are the following. So first, we have, of course, the student should be able to differentiate the elements and compounds. Second, we have the student should be able to demonstrate the appreciation for the importance of understanding the elements and compounds in real life situation. And then third, we have students should be able to identify the pure substance as elements and compounds. So the objective part is very important because they guide both the teacher and the students in understanding what should be learned during the lesson. Next, let's proceed to the subject matter. So, in this part of the lesson plan, the teacher prepares the main concept that will be discussed during the lesson. So, for example, in this our lesson plan, which is elements and compounds, an element is a pure substance made only of one type of atom, and it cannot be broken down into a simpler substance by chemical means. Example of elements include oxygen, hydrogen, gold, and on the other hand, compounds is a substance that is formed when two elements are chemically combined. So, for example, we have water, carbon dioxide, and salt. So, understanding this concept actually helps the students recognize how different materials are formed and how they are classified in chemistry. That is why the lesson information, content and learning competencies, objectives, and the subject matter is very important and should be embedded in the lesson plan, because this is very the first part that can be seen in the lesson plan and would be the basis of how the actual teaching is be done or can be done. Okay, now that we are done with the lesson information, content and learning competency, objectives, and subject matter, let's now proceed to the procedure part of the lesson plan. Procedure. So now, let's proceed to this part. So in this lesson plan, The teaching strategies used is, of course, the 7E learning model, which consists of course, the following stages. We have first elicit, engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate, and then extend. So each stage helps the students build an understanding step by step. So first, let's proceed to the elicit. So elicit. In this part of the lesson plan, the teacher activates the students' prior knowledge. So this in the lesson plan that I bases, the activity use is called paste it if you know it. So the students here group and given pictures of different substances. So they will determine whether the picture represents an element or a compound and paste it on the board under a correct category. So this activity actually helps the students and the teachers to determine what the students already know about the topic. So next, engage. Engage. So in engage stage, the teacher presents a short video about the elements and compounds. So the purpose of this stage is actually to capture the students' attention and stimulate curiosity. So after watching the video, the teacher can ask questions such as, what are the examples of elements that you see in the video? What are the compounds that you can commonly see at home? So this actually helps the students to connect their previous knowledge with the new lesson. Okay, now let's proceed to explore, the third E. So, explore. In this part of the lesson plan, students are given the opportunity to investigate and observe. So, the students, based on the lesson plan that I have basis, students are provided with a periodic table and asked to observe the different elements. So, they may notice that each element has a unique symbols and atomic numbers. So students also explore examples of compounds and identify an elements that is formed by them. So this stage is actually encourages an active learning and discovery of the students. So that is the explored part, the third E and the 7E. And now let's proceed to the fourth E, and that is, yes, E for explain. Explain. So in the explain stage, the students can share their ideas and understanding. So each group will answer questions related to the lesson, such as, why is water considered a compound and not an element? Students present their answer and the teacher clarifies the misconception. So that is the explain part. So this stage actually strengthens the conceptual understanding of the students. So, in short um, term, explain is the discussion. The next E is the fifth E and the seventh E is yes, elaborate. So, elaborate. Sorry. Elaborate. So in this stage, the teacher adds more explanation and examples to deepen the students' understanding. So students may also ask questions and clarifications to clarify their ideas that they find confusing. So, this part, the elaborate part, helps to reinforce the concept that is discussed earlier in the explain part of the lesson plan. So that is why elaborate is more into more examples, more explanation, more clarification so that the lesson would be understandable to every student. Then the next E is of course evaluate, the very important part. Evaluate. So in this part of the lesson plan, the teacher measures the students' learning. So, yes, it is an assessment. So the students can answer a short quiz consisting of 3 to 4 questions about the elements and compounds. So this actually helps determine whether the students, the lesson objectives rather, are have been achieved. So this is the evaluation part or the assessment part that will measure whether the students actually understand or have learned something in the lesson presented by the first part of the 7E. And then the last E, if you are thinking that the last E is evaluate since it's an assessment, and 7E, no, it is not, since the last E is extend. Extend. So in this stage, students are given an assignments where they can choose a compound such as, of course, salt, water, carbon dioxide, whatever. So this they will research. So the elements might that compose of what of that compound, its structure, or how is it important in their everyday life. So this actually allows the students to apply their learning beyond the classroom. So that is why extend is very important. So it actually acts as an assignment. Assignments. So it goes beyond after the After all this E, then we will have the extend part. So, to give a little overview again, we have first the in the 7E we have elicit, the first part, which is answering the prior knowledge, or knowing the prior knowledge of the students. Then next we have engage, of course, to engage the students into learning more, or into engaging them to get knowledge. And then next we have explore. So of course, exploring meaning letting the students explore the concepts, or any examples that is related to your topic. So the next we have the explain. So this is where the a two-way communication between the students and the teachers. So it's more on a discussion part of the lesson. And then we have elaborate, of course. Teacher plays a big role in this evaluate part, because since it will answer the many questions of the students that they need clarifications. So that is the elaborate part. And then we have the evaluation part, another very important part, since this will measure the students' knowledge in the lesson that is presented by the teachers. So since it is evaluate, it is an assessment. And then lastly we have the extend part. So this is where it goes beyond. So it's more on assignments that you let your students know do after the lessons. So that is the 7E model of the lesson plan. That is I bases based on the topic given, the elements and compounds, and then the grade level. We have the time allotment, which is 45 minutes. That is based on the Matatag curriculum as well. And then of course, as teacher, me as the teacher. So 7E is very important, especially in a science major like me, since it's more on a process that not just this, that it's not a teacher centered but a student centered, since we are actually communicating with our students, and then letting them ask, and then we will also assess. And just like that is a two-way communications, and it's very teacher centered. So to conclude, this lesson plan was actually designed to help students understand the difference between elements and compounds through a structured and engaging learning activities. That is why, as I have said earlier, the 7E is very important, or necessary type of lesson plan in a science class. So by using the 7E model, the students can encourage or actively participate in the learning process, and to develop a deeper understanding of science concepts. So actually, lesson planning is essential skill for teacher, because of course it ensures that the lesson is organized, effective, and align with the learning objectives. So that is why, as a future educator myself, it is very important for us to know what is a what is a lesson plan and how to do a lesson planning, since this will be the core of being a teacher, since we'll not just teach but without preparations, because actually lesson plan is, as what I have said earlier, is a kind of preparation or a plan, of course, a plan in how you will deliver your lesson, or how you will present your lesson to your students. So as much as we wanted to give our very best, it's very important for us to plan ahead of what would be our lesson to, of course, first and foremost, to cater the different kind of students that we will encounter, since, as we all know, students are different. So that is why lesson planning is very important, and it's very important for us to know and how to create it, since of course we are teachers, we are future educators, and lesson planning is always been present. So in our, of course, in our work, since of course we are teachers, so that is why it's very important for us to, of course, the lesson information that will be given, because how can you create a lesson plan without the lesson itself, or whatever that the other details that is available, it, because of course, as I have said, it is a structured plan, but it is your way to present your lesson. So for example, we have here the grade 8, the 45 minutes, the time allotment. That is the very basic part of the lesson plan, and of course the content and learning competencies. So this is why the one that actually guides your teaching or learning in, or learning of your students. And the next, of course, objectives, very common. We all have need to know the objectives, and of course the subject matter, and then the 7E part of the lesson plans. So overall, I believe, as a future educator, lesson plan is very important, not just because it is needed, but because, of course, as a teacher, we need to have a plan on how to deliver our lessons to our students, because our students deserve a, of course, they deserve the best of our ability, and of course, they deserve to learn. So that is why we will present them, we will create the plan on how to present our lessons, so that we can have a meaningful learning experiences. So that will be all for my discussion, and I hope you learned something on how to create a lesson plan, and the lesson plan using the 7E model. So thank you, and I hope you learned something.